Hey guys, welcome back to Wentworth Life, the channel that talks all things Wentworth. If you're new to the channel, then hit that subscribe button right now for all future updates. And if you stick around until the end of the video, I will be responding to your comments from previous videos. Now just before we get started guys, I've got a bit of a funny story. Well, it's not really funny for me, but just as I was getting all my equipment to record for this video right now, I somehow kicked my foot into the side of the wall just as I was coming through the doorway. And I'm not gonna lie guys, you know that scene in this episode where Dr. Miller is going fuck, fuck, fuck? Tell you what, I reenacted that very scene. So I'm currently in quite a lot of pain, but I tell you what, I'm just gonna muddle through and hopefully recording this video will take my mind off it. Okay, Wentworth Season 9 or Season 8 Part 2, whatever you want to call it, Episode 7. For me personally, this was my favourite episode of the season so far. There were a lot of revelations, secrets revealed, and some classic Wentworth moments and one-liners, all leading up to these incredible final 3 episodes. The final scenes in this episode actually gave me goosebumps, and I was also screaming at my TV because I didn't want the episode to end. I have so many thoughts and theories after this week's episodes, which I am going to discuss with you as I go through each storyline. I have a feeling this might be a very long review video, so grab yourselves a drink and get comfy. So let's start with the episode recap scene, because this week they brought back that dramatic chilling music that they used in the first 2 episodes. I find this music very haunting and an indication that this episode is going to be rather dramatic. I also feel that they are using this haunting music this season when someone is about to die or is going to die soon, and I have some thoughts about a certain character dying, possibly in next week's episode or maybe episode 9, but we'll get to that in due course. So let's start at the opening scene, which was rather steamy. So I can only show you certain screenshots from this very first opening scene, but it was basically 2 characters getting frisky in the showers. And I've just got to give a shout out to my Welsh buddy Stefan and his partner Ryan, who had to suffer watching this in front of their grandparents this week. I totally feel your pain there, I've been there myself. So we have this saucy scene and we see bums and we see boobs, and then Ali wakes up. So Ali was having a saucy dream. I'm not sure who Ali was making that with in this dream, but I'm assuming it was Ruby. So Ali takes off her bed covers and she's realised that she's wet the bed, and she's like, oh, for goodness sake. She then gets up and onto a wheelchair and she's looking around to see where everyone is in the unit, and she goes into Ruby's cell and opens the door, and Ruby and Zaina are in there making out, and Ali is like, ooh, sorry guys, and Ali then goes off while Ruby and Zaina have a little bit of a giggle. We then cut to Mari in the shower block where she's going to the mirror to sort her face out. And Rita is there in the background, and Rita's like, it's been 3 bloody days, Mari, what are you waiting for? So basically Rita has been waiting for Mari to spill the beans about Rita being a cop, but she hasn't done it yet. So Rita barges up to Mari and is like, I should just snap your neck right now. And Mari says that she'd love nothing more than to stick the whole prison onto her, but she's got bigger problems at the moment. So Rita demands to know what's going on and grabs Mari and threatens her. And I was like, yes Rita, this is what I love about you. Mari tells Rita that her bigger problems come in the form of Lou and Judy. So this gets Rita interested and lets Mari go, and asks Mari, okay, what's happening with Lou and Judy? And also she says to Mari that if you want to prove to me that you've changed, you will tell me what you know. So Mari tells Rita that Lou wants to make all the senior officers pay for what happened to Reb, and is threatening to kill them all, and that Judy Bryant is going to help her, but she doesn't know what the plan is yet. So Rita is like, why does it even bother you? And then the penny drops. Mari wants to protect Will Jackson. Mari reveals that she's been using Zaina's phone to bug Lou's cell to try and find out what is going on. But as we all know, Lou and Judy, they are having their little private chats in the shower block. So Rita tells Mari that if she wants to play detective, then go ahead, find out what they're up to. Rita then takes all this information to Mr. Jackson, and she tells him about the serious threats that Lou is making towards them all. When Will asks Rita, where did you even hear this? She says that it came from Mari, and she says that she knows that she's a snake, but her gut feeling is saying that she is on the level about this one, and goes on to say that Judy Bryant is helping Lou and to take the threats seriously. So Will then calls a meeting with Vera, Jake, Linda and Anne, and tells them about Lou Kelly's threats. But Anne just shrugs it off and says that if we took every threat from a prisoner seriously, then we would get nothing done. But Linda Miles, she's sitting there and she's muttering things to herself like fucking Lou Kelly. Which leads me on to this next scene, which I did kind of really enjoy. Linda goes on the warpath after hearing about these threats, and she goes hunting for Lou Kelly, who is just leaving the yard. Linda storms down towards Lou, rips out a huge baton and pins Lou up against the fence and puts the baton to Lou's throat. Linda is like, who the fuck do you think you are, making threats against us? And tells Lou that the last person who tried that one ended up with a bullet through his head. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, but you didn't do that, Linda, that was Ali. Linda then says something like, if you so much as fart near me, then I will rain a shitstorm down on you. And Linda then throws Kelly into the wall, and Lou's face, my god. Linda's in for some pain after that move, I'm telling you now. Linda's PTSD is definitely triggered when anyone makes threats against the staff members, and it was interesting to see Linda lose it in this episode. I do feel we haven't had the chance to explore Linda's PTSD since the siege, and for me that is just a real shame. I really wanted Linda to have a session with Dr. Miller. I think it would have been a fantastic moment to see Linda break down and reveal her true feelings to get some support. I do feel the writers missed a fantastic opportunity there. Instead, what they have done is they kind of turn Linda into like a villain character, using her PTSD as an excuse, which I'm not really a fan of at all. I kind of understood it last year because we were being introduced to like, whoa, Linda's like changed, and not in a good way. But I would have really liked to have seen a resolution with the PTSD storyline this season, and have Linda eventually return to her original character who we all fell in love with, instead of this awful character who's just going around and getting male guards to fish things from women's lady bits. I'm not sure Linda can be redeemed in my opinion, but we'll just have to wait and see. So Lou is pissed off, and later on Lou asks Mari if she dobbed her into Miles. But Mari is like, I wouldn't do that. We are sleeping together, and after everything we've been through, why would I do that to you? And Mari goes to walk off, but Lou pulls Mari back and apologizes. Mari then tries to plant the seed that maybe Judy is trying to set Lou up, but Lou knows Judy better than that because obviously Judy and Lou, they're conspiring to blow up the prison. So Lou and Mari, they end up hugging on the bed, and Lou tells Mari that she needs her, but she hates herself for it because she feels like that she's cheating on Reb, and tells Mari to please never leave her alone. And Mari kisses Lou and they both start getting frisky, and underneath the bed is Zaina's phone recording everything again. This was an interesting scene. We saw Lou being vulnerable just for a little moment in this scene, and really relying on Mari for her support. It was quite sad and it gave me mixed emotions. I mean, Lou is just totally fucked after Reb's death, and she really is an emotional mess whenever she's alone in her cell when nobody is watching. And to be honest, that's totally understandable after what happened, but this is what's making her more and more dangerous as these episodes go on, because Lou, she just doesn't care anymore. She's always been fearless and strong, but she's really broken now, and she doesn't have anyone to care for, not really, and nothing really to live for anymore. And Mari is gonna be in serious trouble when Lou finds out that she's just using her. Later on, there's a scene where Rita is telling all the H1 girls of what Mari told her about Lou and Judy, and Boomer is like, why do you trust Mari? It makes no sense. But Rita tells them she knows it makes no sense, but it does make sense as to why Judy is being protected by Lou. Annie gets really annoyed because she's sick of all the scheming that's going on, and she just goes to bed, and Boomer goes to bed as well. Now what I enjoyed is this next part, when Rita tells Ruby that she still doesn't trust Mari, but she just wants to keep everyone safe. Not just Ruby, but all the girls, which I thought was really nice. I bloody love Rita. In the next scene, Rita is out in the yard doing garden work, and Mari comes out and has a go at Rita for going to Mr. Jackson and spilling the beans. Because now Lou is twitchy about there being a mole in the camp, and that there is no way Lou is going to trust her at the moment. Mari accuses Rita of trying to get her killed using this plan with Lou, but Rita turns around and says that she does her own dirty work, which I absolutely loved. In fact, these Rita and Mari scenes were just outstanding again this week. There are some really great moments where they have to try and work together, but at the same time they keep telling each other to fuck off. It was just great. A little bit more on this storyline later, but now I want to jump to Boomer and Gavin. So last week things were hotting up with the hunt for that camera, and Boomer seriously needs to get it to Gavin before it's found. So they have another conjugal visit. Jake brings Boomer in and tells him that they have 1 hour, and that when there is a knock on the door, that is their 2-minute warning. Oh god, can you just imagine coming into prison to visit your partner for a conjugal visit so that you can have sex with them, only to be on a timer? It's just hilarious. Every time there is a conjugal visit, I always think of B. Smith, because it was B who fought to get the conjugal visits back in season 4, and I'm just so glad that they still have them all these years later. So Boomer and Gavin sit down on the bed, and Gavin is like, do you have it? And Boomer's like, yeah, it's down here. And Boomer gets up while Gavin turns around so Boomer can fish it out of her vajayjay. She then gives the tiny camera to Gavin, and Gavin is like, oh, I wish I had my phone so I could watch it right now. So Boomer uses this opportunity to reenact some of the things that she's filmed, and she starts to grab her boobs and then rubs Gavin's leg. She then starts scratching him and lightly biting him, and before you know it, they both end up kissing and rolling down onto the bed, and the camera falls onto the floor. Now, I'm really happy that Boomer has finally got her end away after all these years, but Gavin just creeps me out. I hate his backstory of being some weird pervert and owning a forum website called Slammer.com. I just wish that they'd introduced us a nice new character to properly fall in love with Boomer last season. That would have just been much nicer. But anyway, it is what it is. And later on, Boomer and Gavin are naked under the covers after doing the okey dokey. And Linda knocks on the door for their 2-minute warning. So Gavin jumps out of bed and starts getting dressed, and he's like, where's the camera? And Boomer's like, it's down there. So Gavin gets the camera, and Boomer then gets out the lube for Gavin to use, but Gavin's like, no, I'm not doing that again, it ain't going up there. I will just put it in between my ass cheeks, and that will be better. Oh god, this is just so gross. Gavin then bends down to Boomer, and the pair of them end up having a kiss as if they're both really falling for each other, which was kind of nice, but like I said, Gavin just gives me the creeps. But if Boomer is happy, then I'm happy. Win-win. God, I'm sounding like some big brother of Boomers, aren't I? Anyway, Linda comes to get Gavin from the conjugal suite, and Linda says to Gavin, when's the wedding? And Gavin's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Linda says, you and Jenkins make as much sense as purple fucking rain. Gavin then has some weird twinge in his bum, as if the camera isn't holding too well between those cheeks. And he uses his hand to try and, I don't know, pop it back in between his cheeks maybe? I don't know, he does something down there. But this does not go unnoticed by Linda, who stops Gavin, and she asks him if he has a problem down there. And Gavin is like, only hemorrhoids. So Linda opens up the strip search room, puts on her rubber gloves and says, let's let Dr. Piles have a little look. So the game is up now. Linda finds the camera, thankfully off screen, because the next scene, Linda has Gavin in her room and she's notified Anne, and Anne comes running down to get the camera. Linda's got the camera wrapped in like a plastic bag and she gives it to Anne, and then Linda's like, it was in his bum crack, and Anne is like, excellent work, Linda, and tells her to ring the police to get Gavin charged and to then stick Boomer on one of those restraining benches. Linda then mentions the extra month's wages, and Anne is like, congratulations. Anne is happy and Linda is happy. Poor Gavin, he looks like he's shitting himself. Anne then goes to her office and looks through the footage that Boomer has filmed. Now, in this scene, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what is going on? I was not expecting this. So Anne notices Judy and Lou in the shower block that Boomer's camera has recorded, and she listens to their conversation. Now, the conversation that was recorded, it was from last week's episode where Lou is telling Judy that her contact can make the bomb, but it's going to take about 3 weeks. Now, I predicted that Boomer's camera was going to record something, but I had no idea that it was going to be Anne Reynolds who was going to see the footage. Look at her face once she's finished watching it. She takes off her glasses in disbelief at what she's just overheard. She quickly grabs her phone and rings down to Linda and tells her to cancel the police and to toss Gavin into a holding cell, and Linda's like, wait, what? But then Anne is like, if you want your month's bonus, then you'll do exactly what I tell you. Anne then quickly starts to make another phone call, and she picks up a business card, and it is Tony Colburn's name. Yes, guys, it's pronounced Colburn, not Cockburn, but you know. So Tony Colburn is that NSO guy who appeared in the show last season when Judy first arrived in Wentworth and was doing all of the original investigating of the laptop that they found, and he even got very threatening at one point by telling Judy something like that he can just take Judy somewhere and make her disappear. So Anne ends up ringing him, but later on it isn't Tony Colburn who arrives, it's a completely different guy called Dale Langdon. Anne asks this guy what happened with Tony, and this Dale guy just says that Tony has been reassigned overseas and that he is his superior and overlooks all cases, including this one. So Dale asks Anne to see the footage, which she does play him. We hear Lou and Judy talking about the bomb and their escape attempt, and Dale, he's looking a bit worried, and he asks Anne who else has seen this footage, and Anne is like, no one apart from me. Boomer couldn't watch it because she doesn't have a phone or a laptop to watch the footage back. Now, this scene had my alarm bells going. I do not trust this Dale guy at all. Anne tells Dale that they are planning an escape and we have to put a stop to it, and Dale is just like, you let me worry about that, and tells Anne to say and do nothing for the moment. He then goes to question Gavin alone, which we don't see because it happens off screen, but it was all very odd and strange the way this Dale guy was acting. Later on in the episode, Dale tells Anne that he believes that Gavin knows nothing on what was recorded on that camera, and when Anne asks him if he's going to put a stop to the escape, he says that he's just going to let it run for a bit because he wants to try and catch Judy's contact making the bomb. Like, what the hell? Even Anne is looking a bit concerned about this statement. So, my theory on this is that somehow, I do not know how, but somehow, Judy's organisation have somehow got to Tony Colburn. Either they have him as a hostage somewhere, or he's just simply gone missing, like they've killed him or something. Or maybe they've even just hacked his phone to divert his calls, I don't know. But somehow, Judy's terrorist organisation have got to him. And I reckon this Dale guy in today's episode is not from the NSO at all. He looked really worried and really dodgy when he was watching the footage and was very shifty about who had seen this footage. I reckon Dale is part of Judy's organisation most definitely. I mean, I could be totally wrong on this one, and there could be a further twist in this story as the episodes go on, but at this very moment in time, I reckon Dale is on Judy's team. Okay, so going back to Ali for a moment, who plays a big part with Vera, Will, and Dr. Miller. So there is a scene where Vera is telling Will that Miller is squeaky clean. I did laugh when Vera was like, there aren't even any women in his basement. Because they're trying to find some dirt on Dr. Miller to try and fire him, to get him away from Ferguson, but they're having no luck. So they decide to try and get Ali in on the act to help them. So they bring Ali in for a private chat, and they basically tell her that they need her help. They ask her how is Dr. Miller in their sessions together, and Ali is like, Dr. Miller, he's fine. He's totally professional the whole time. Nothing rattles him. Just as Ali says that, we then cut to the next scene of Miller shouting, fuck, fuck, fuck Joan. Joan is in the background in his office asking him if he's finished, which I did have a bit of a giggle. It was almost as if Joan was the prison psych there for the moment. Anyway, Dr. Miller, he's going nuts in his office because Joan has just confessed to him that she did indeed force Eve to pull her own eye out. And Dr. Miller is in shock. He says that he can't continue with their arrangement anymore, and Joan is telling him that it was just a moment of weakness and that she can control her urges. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I was watching this scene for the first time, it felt like I was stepping back in time with Joan and Jake in season 4 and season 5, when Joan had Jake dancing on a piece of string. I feel like this is now going to go the same way with Dr. Miller. Anyway, Joan gets Dr. Miller to give her one final chance, which I'm quite shocked about. But Miller, he believes that Joan is still on his medication, but as we learned last week, Joan has stopped taking them at some point because her P-test results came back negative. Later on, we have a scene of Ali having a session with Dr. Miller, and I've got to say, Kate Jenkinson, she was outstanding in these scenes, and she 100% deserves an award for her performance. So Miller asks Ali what's with the serious face, and Ali tells him that she found out that her ex, Ruby, has started sleeping with someone else. So Miller asks Ali if she still has feelings for her, but Ali's like, no, we're just friends. So Miller asks her why is she experiencing negative feelings about this then, and Ali quickly points out the chair. It's because of the wheelchair. She feels undesirable and refers to herself as a sexless lump. Miller points out that she can still have sex, but Ali says who would want to have sex with her, and this just literally broke my heart, especially when she says since her injury she has been touched by so many people, even strangers, yet she has never felt so alone. And my god guys, I had tears in my eyes. This was just truly heartbreaking. Now let me just point out what exactly is going on here. So Vera and Will, they have asked Ali to try and seduce Dr. Miller just so that they can try and get him sacked and away from Ferguson. This isn't revealed at this point in the episode, but I wanted to put it in there that this is their plan. But I felt in these scenes, even though Ali is trying to set Dr. Miller up, all of these things that she's telling him I feel are genuinely true. She does feel alone, and she does feel like she will never be able to be a real woman again and be intimate with someone, and every word that she was saying, I felt it. I felt every single word, and I was glued to that TV screen with everything that she was saying. A little bit later on in the episode, Ali has another session with Miller, but on her way to his office, she purposely drops B's red blanket onto the floor in the hallway. When she gets to his office, she's like, oh, I must have dropped my blanket somewhere. Can you go and have a look? So Dr. Miller leaves the office and he goes and grabs it, and he leaves Ali alone, and Ali pulls out a piece of paper which we don't know what is in this paper at the moment, or what she even does with it, because the camera cuts away when Miller goes to get B's red blanket, but we do find out in a little bit later on. So during this session, Kate Jenko delivers another amazing performance. Miller asks Ali what is she most afraid of, and Ali says she's most afraid that nobody will ever want her again. Miller then tells Ali that she's underestimating herself and that she does have a lot to offer to someone, and says that she is a beautiful person, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Does Dr. Miller actually fancy Ali? And I think Ali was actually thinking the same as me in that moment, and of course she's now going to use that to her advantage, because Ali asks Dr. Miller straight out if he thinks that she really is beautiful and desirable. And Dr. Miller pauses, but then says it doesn't matter what he thinks, it matters what she thinks. Ali then comes out with this amazing speech and says that she thinks she's been so preoccupied with the daily grind and relearning this new normal in her life that she hasn't had time to stop and think and accept that this new life of hers is now forever. And guys, those bloody tears came back after Ali made that speech. Such powerful writing. I loved every moment of it, and I was totally invested in listening to Ali's story. However heartbreaking it was, because it is an important story to tell. And I know a lot of people who are watching watching the episode, they can relate to a lot of what Ali is saying. The writers, they've done an amazing job of Ali's story this year. It's incredible. Later on, we cut to a scene with Ali in the showers, looking a little bit dazed, and this was another heartbreaking scene to watch. So Ruby asks Ali if she's ready to come out. So Ali comes out, and Ruby helps Ali dry off. Ali then tries to kiss Ruby, but Ruby is like, Ali, what are you doing? And Ali then puts Ruby's hand onto her breast and says, please just touch me. And Ruby pulls back and says that she can't, she's with Zaina now. And she goes on to say that they were always better as friends, Ali. Now what I really liked about this scene was the way Ruby handled herself in the situation. Ruby was so kind and gentle with Ali's feelings and just really, really polite. And at the same time, you could see how Ruby was just feeling so gutted for Ali in that moment. All Ali wants is someone to touch her and make her feel like a woman again, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. We are all human, we all want to be flawed, and we can all relate to that. And Ruby, she was just so kind and genuine, and even when Ali asked Ruby just to go and leave her to it, Ruby was like, oh please Ali, please just let me help you. And guess what guys, the tears came back again in this scene. I should have just had a box of tissues handy because I wasn't prepared to be this emotional in this episode. But my heart was breaking for both Ali and Ruby in this scene. But the next scene I'm going to talk about is literally just off the scale of wowness. Like my eyes turned into Niagara Falls in this next scene. So the panic alarm has gone off in the prison and code blue is announced in the shower block. Vera is running through the corridor and bumps into Jake, who says that Ali is in the showers armed with a shiv, threatening to cut herself. So Vera goes to the showers where there are already a few officers trying to help Ali, but Vera pulls them out and goes in and sees Ali sitting in a chair screaming for Dr. Miller. So Vera's thinking at this point, oh, okay, is this all part of the setup maybe? So she says Dr. Miller is coming. So Miller arrives and talks to Ali, and as he walks in, Ali puts the blade very close to her throat. Like honestly, I was very nervous at what was happening in this scene because I wasn't sure whether this was Ali acting for the Dr. Miller setup or if this was actually a genuine breakdown that she was having. Personally, I feel it was Ali having a genuine breakdown and that she was just able to use it to her advantage later on in the episode, which we'll get to in just a moment. But anyway, Miller asks Ali what's all this about, and Ali says that she can't deal with this wheelchair anymore. Miller asks Ali for the blade and then they can talk about it, but Ali's saying she doesn't want to talk because nothing is gonna fix this situation. She goes on to say that people they don't see her, she's invisible, and if people don't see her then she may as well be dead. But Miller says she isn't better off dead and that the wheelchair doesn't define who she is. So Ali then just says then, who is she? And Dr. Miller, he doesn't respond, so Ali just goes nuts and loses it. She stabs herself in both of her legs over and over again. And she's screaming and everyone is in shock. I mean, look at Vera and Will. Dr. Miller runs in and grabs Ali's hand and drops the blades and oh my god. This scene just really hits you in all of those feels. Like I had streams of tears when Ali was talking about being invisible, and then my mouth just dropped when she started stabbing herself. It was just insane. Vera and Will, they're confused by what's just happened, and Vera even says that she just doesn't understand why she did it. She didn't need to do that. So Ali's in the psych ward for a little bit, and Miller tells Vera and Will that he thinks that she is suffering with a form of PTSD. After everything that's happened to her, like Kaz's death, the siege, and then the shower attack, it's all taken its toll on her. I loved how Dr. Miller described it as a tap dripping into a cup. Sooner or later, that cup is going to spill, and I think we can all relate to that one. Vera goes in to see how Ali is doing, and Ali tells Vera there was no way she was going to be able to seduce Dr. Miller, and that she was wrong to pin all her hopes onto her. Vera and Will have a chat outside, and Vera says that she's called it all off. She had no idea that Ali was this unstable, and things are just going too far. She's been so preoccupied with the Ferguson stuff because Ferguson is a monster. But then then Will points out, what if we are the monsters? And Vera just looks at him, and it was interesting that Will said this, because I know a lot of people in the fandom world, they have been commenting on how crazy it would be if Vera realizes that she's actually starting to turn into her nemesis, Ferguson. Now, I don't really see that myself. I think Ferguson is just so goddamn indestructible. Vera and Will, they have just been pushed so far to their limits. They may think that they are turning into monsters, but honestly, in my opinion, they still have good intentions in helping the women. But I suppose you could argue two wrongs don't make a right. I mean, the dynamics in this show is just amazing. I love every single moment of it. Later on, Miller comes in to see Ali, and Ali says that she's sorry to Miller, and he's like, you got nothing to apologize for. Miller then sits down onto the bed, and he says, as a human being, he does care about her. And Ali starts to cry. Miller then takes Ali's hands and comforts her, and he gets up really close and personal and says that she is beautiful, and that he just wants her to see what everybody else sees. And then Ali kisses him, and I've gotta say, it was quite a hot kiss, I'm not going to lie. Also, Dr. Miller doesn't exactly push her off. He just kind of holds his pose there while she kisses him until she pulls away. He looks at her and gets up and then just leaves, and just as he leaves, the camera pans around and Ali looks up and there is a camera right there above them that has just caught this kiss on camera. Nice one, Ali, that was smooth. Later on, Miller is asked to come to Will's office where Will and Vera are waiting for him. They show him the footage from the security camera of him and Ali having a kiss. Miller points out that it's all out of context and that she kissed him, but Will points out that he doesn't exactly look like he's not enjoying it, and I have to agree with that one. Will then says that Ali has made a formal complaint of sexual harassment against him, and says that they have been having a sexual relationship and that he recently tried to break it off, and that was the reason for Ali losing it in the shower block. Will then says that Ali wrote him a letter begging him not to end the affair that she gave him, but Miller says none of this is true. So Vera's like, okay then, you wouldn't mind if we search your office? And I was like, oh no, this is what that letter that Ali left was all about earlier. So they go to his office and surprise, surprise, there is Ali's letter. And Dr. Miller, he's looking very confused and doesn't quite know what's going on, but he's claiming that he's totally innocent. And Vera turns around and says, well, that's not exactly true, is it, Mr. Miller? They know all about him and Ferguson, and the penny finally drops for Dr. Miller. They've set him up, and Will is trying to force Miller to quit or he will take it to the board. Just as Vera and Will leave his office, Dr. Miller says, what kind of people use a vulnerable person in a wheelchair to do their dirty work? And I was like, shut up, Dr. Miller. Give Ali some credit, for goodness sake. She set you up good and proper. Yes, she may have had a genuine breakdown in this episode, but Ali will do anything to stop Joan fooling the courts and being released. Ali will never stop fighting Ferguson and getting revenge on her after everything that she did to her and B. And I bet B was up there looking down on Ali in this episode, feeling very proud of her. So what is Dr. Miller going to do now? Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. I just want to jump back to Joan for a second. So there is a scene in the library and Joan goes up to Linda and says that she was supposed to have a meeting with Dr. Miller, but Linda says that he's cancelled the appointment. So Joan has written a letter and asks Linda if she can give it to him. While Joan passes the letter, Lou and Mullet are in the corridor just by the door and they see Joan passing the note and they then walk off. Linda then tells Joan that she must be crazy to ever think that she would help her, and Linda then rips up Joan's letter, and this reminded me of the time when Vera ripped up Joan's letter to Shane back in season 4, and loving all the little callbacks. Linda then walks off and Joan looks furious, but that's nothing because Lou now thinks that Joan is lagging to Linda and that she was the one who told Linda about the threats that Lou has been making to the staff. So later on in Lou's unit, Lou goes up to Mari and apologizes to her for blaming her for being the mole. Lou calls Kath out of her cell in front of all the women and then says that Kath is the mole and that she's been cozying up to Miss Miles. Joan tries to speak, but Lou tells her to shut up. She doesn't want to hear her whiny excuses, and Joan goes to talk again, and Lou then screams out to shut up! Lou then tells Muller to spread the word. Laundry after breakfast. They're all going to have a little Kath Maxwell barbecue. And I was just thinking to myself, whoa, what's going on now? What the hell is going on? So later on, Joan is brought into the laundry by two of the women, and that male officer is there again, taking payoffs from the girls to leave the room and turn a blind eye. Joan is then taken to Lou on the press, and Lou is like, we all know what happens to laggers, and it would be a shame to break tradition. So Lou grabs Joan's hands and takes a look at both of them to decide which one she's going to steam press. Lou then decides to give Joan a matching hand, as her other hand has those burnt scars from season 4. So Lou puts her hand in the press and gets ready to pull it down, and Joan starts to do this face twitching thing like she's about to lose it, and then smash. Joan smashes Lou's face into the handles of the press, and I was like, what? Whoa, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? But then we come to realize that it was just Joan's imagination for a split second. It wasn't real, and I was like, damn it. Lou then proceeds to throw down the press onto Joan's hand, and my god, Lou kept that press on Joan's hand for quite a long time. I'm surprised that there was a hand left by the end of that. So my thoughts on this scene, I loved it when Joan smashes Lou's face into the press. My mouth literally dropped to the floor until we realised it was a dream. I was a little bit annoyed about that, mind, but you know, it was still pretty good to watch. But I love the fact that we saw someone's hands burnt to a crisp in this final season. We haven't had anyone burn their hands in the press for quite some time. Although I do think Lou is going to regret doing that to Joan. Back to Mari and Rita's telling Mari now to stop worrying because Mari was feeling guilty that Joan or Kath ended up getting blamed for being the mole, and Rita points out that Lou has now outed the mole and punished them. So now Lou should be a lot more relaxed and maybe she will open up, and tells Mari to get back bugging the cell. And that's exactly what Mari does. Mari goes to Lou's cell and puts the phone under the bed, and Judy almost catches her, but Mari just about gets away with it by the skin of her teeth and leaves the cell. But Mari has forgotten to tidy up Lou's bed sheets properly. So later on, Lou goes into his cell and notices the bed sheets, but before she does, she says something to herself. She says, "It won't be long now, baby." And this got me thinking, is Lou hoping to die in this explosion so she can be with Reb? This is the vibe I was getting, mind, when Lou muttered these words. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Anyway, Lou notices her bed sheets are messed up, and then we cut to a scene of the yard where Mari and Rita, they are both reading, but they're watching each other in the distance. Lou then comes storming out and grabs Mari by the head, and she says that she just found Zaina's phone under her bed, the very phone that Mari was supposed to get rid of. Not only that, but it was also voice recording her. Mari is like, I don't know how it got there, and Lou smacks Mari right in the face. Rita then gets up, but Lou smacks Mari in the face again, and Rita grabs Lou, restrains her, and then throws her backwards. Rita's then taken off her jacket, and she's like full on getting ready to have a huge fight with Lou. I was loving it. But Lou is grabbed by the officers before any fights could happen. Lou is grabbed and dragged back by the officers, and look at Lou's face. Look how angry she is. She looks insane in this very screenshot. Lou screams out that Mari is fucking dead while Mari is standing behind Rita, and I absolutely love this scene for many reasons. One, because I was not a fan of Mari and Lou sleeping together. I hated every moment of it. Two, because we got to see Rita in a little bit of action. And three, this is now going to lead up to some bigger fight scenes that I think is going to happen next week. I just loved it. Also, I reckon Rita got up and protected Mari, because if Rita protects her, then Mari will keep her mouth shut about the cop thing. At least that's what Rita is hoping for, in my opinion anyway. Back to Joan for a moment, who was in the sickbay unit being patched up after getting her hand burnt. Miller comes in and tells Joan that Will and Vera, they know the truth about everything now. So Joan turns around and says, well, I suppose I'll just have to kill them. Miller's face is priceless. Joan tells Dr. Miller that she may have a solution, but she will need two things from him. And once again, this gave me season 4, season 5 vibes when Joan was blackmailing Jake. This then leads me on to the final moments of the episode, which gave me goosebumps. So it was one of those endings again where there was music playing in the background with a little bit of a montage going on, and I love these type of endings to a Wentworth episode. So Mari, she's packing her stuff and changing units. Just before she leaves, Joan arrives on the scene and she's like, what's going on? And Mari apologizes to Joan, saying that she was the mole. So Joan is like, so what was I then? Just collateral? And just before Mari goes to leave the unit, Joan says, come on, make it up to me. Give me Zaina's phone. But Mari says she doesn't have it anymore. Lou has it. We then cut to H1 where the officer is doing a head count for the evening and Mari arrives. Yes, Mari has now got her wish and she's moved to H1. Rita goes over to Mari and takes her box of things and takes it to her cell. We then have Lou sleeping in her bed and a shadow appearing over her. It's Joan. And she is creeping over Lou, and for a moment there I honestly thought Joan was about to do some serious damage to Lou. But instead, Joan quietly grabs the mobile phone from next to Lou. Next minute, we see a Wi-Fi password for a printer that Dr. Miller has given her. Joan puts in the password, but what is she about to do? Well, she sends a photograph to a printer somewhere in the prison. I'm not sure if it's in Vera's office, or Will's office, or even Anne Reynolds' office. But it's a printout photo of Vera, Will, and Jake at the burial place digging up the dead body from season 6. The photo that Brendan Murphy took when they went back to see if Joan was in the box. The very photo Brendan Murphy was blackmailing them all over. This is a very damaging photo for Vera, Will, and Jake because it places them at the very place where Kath Maxwell was murdered. And even though at the time they thought it was Joan Ferguson's rotten body in the box, they kept quiet, didn't alert the police, and it's all gonna come out that Will was the one who originally buried Joan alive. Wow. The gloves are really off now. Joan ain't messing around. She is willing to send all 3 of those officers to jail if she has to. She wants no hurdles in her court case that's coming up in a couple of weeks, and oh god, it's gonna be insane. What a cliffhanger. This episode was the best of the season so far in my opinion. Everything that happened in this episode has now set everything up for the next 3 episodes and everything's kicking off. Okay, so my favourite part of this episode, let me think. I've got to say, my favourite part of the episode was probably Ali's breakdown in the shower block. Not because it was fun to watch in any shape or form, but because it was so well acted, so well written, and it made me cry. And it had a huge shock at the end of the scene when she stabbed her leg. So yeah, that has to be my favourite part of this episode. My least favourite moment was probably the scene where Mari and Lou were making out after Lou tells Mari that she needs her. I just hated that whole dynamic and I just didn't like it. But apart from that, I really am struggling to actually find any scene that I disliked in this week's episode because Judy Bryant was very quiet, so that's probably why. But all in all, a fantastic episode, guys. Anyway, let's move on to some predictions. So I said earlier on, I don't think that Dale guy is really from the NSO. I definitely think he is part of Judy's crew. I don't know how, I just have that gut feeling. Now, Scoza, you left a comment on one of my videos telling me that you think that Mari recorded Jonesy with the phone and Rita will find it after Mari is killed. Now, I absolutely loved that prediction. It actually got me thinking. So obviously Mari isn't killed yet, but I think you could be onto something with Mari recording that conversation that she had with Jonesy, you know, when Jonesy told her about Rita being a cop. If Mari did record her conversation with Jonesy last week, then I reckon next week Lou is going to listen to all of those voice recordings that Mari has made, and she is going to come across that chat with Jonesy and learn that Rita was a cop. And then all hell is going to break loose. I think Lou will take the phone out into the yard and play it to all the women. And then I reckon we will get that scene of Rita fighting Lou's crew in the yard. Like, I honestly think it's really going to kick off next week, and Rita is going to have the fight of her life on her hands. And maybe even Ruby and the H1 girls, they're all going to be in danger, and it's literally going to be a free-for-all. I definitely think Boomer might get the awesome news next week that she's pregnant. I really hope so anyway, because I've been predicting this every single week now. I just hope that nothing bad happens to her in the explosion. Because if the writers finally do give Boomer a baby to only then snatch it away in the final episode, I will be really pissed off. I have no idea how this Joan, Vera, Will, Dr. Miller, and even Jake's storyline is going to go down next week. I dread to think what's going to happen. All I know is that we may get some amazing classic scenes between Joan and the three officers in next week's episode. Mari is going to be in serious danger when Lou comes hunting for her. I mean, with Lou finding out about Rita being a cop and then also protecting Mari, it's not going to end well. I definitely think Mari's days are numbered now. I wouldn't be surprised if Mari is killed off next week or maybe in episode 9. I will be very surprised if she makes it to the final episode. I mean, the mood Lou's in right now, she has no chance. It's all very exciting and so much is happening, my brain cannot cope with it all. I'm feeling very sad now though about how close the season is to ending for good. It's going to be a very sad day for us Wentworth fans when it happens. I can guarantee that I am going to be crying my eyes out in the final episode. If it's anything like the season 7 final with Liz's death, then I'm going to be an emotional mess by the end of this season. I'm going to need some counselling. So guys, only 3 weeks left, so this is what's gonna happen on this channel in the next couple of weeks. After next week's episode has aired, episode 8, I will be doing a final thoughts and prediction video for what I think will happen in the final 2 episodes. Also, me and Peter will be doing another YouTube live video for you all to answer your questions about what you guys think may happen in the final 2 episodes. This YouTube live that we're going to be doing will also be taking place sometime after next week's episode has aired, but I will keep you updated with all the dates and times as soon as I've planned it with Peter. I'm probably going to be making a huge video after this season has ended and taking a look back at the last 9 years of Wentworth, where me and Peter will be talking about our favourite and least favourite moments from the show, the moments that made us laugh and the moments that made us cry. It's going to be a big video that I really want to make, so get ready guys. I've got a lot of Wentworth content on its way to celebrate our favourite Australian TV show. Okay guys, so what did you think of this week's episode? Did you cry? Be honest with me, because I did. Let me know in the comments box below if you cried during some of the alley scenes, and let me know if you have any thoughts and predictions for what's to come. And on that note, it's now time for some comment replies. So we have Steve Fest. What did your partner think of the eyeball episode? Well, right then guys, let me just quickly explain. If you haven't seen some of my older videos recently, then I've made no secret about how my partner Peter cannot stand eyeballs on the screen, let alone an eyeball being ripped out and put in a bowl of jelly. So I had to watch the episode while Peter was in work just so I could see how gruesome it was gonna be, and so that I could pre-warn him for later on when we watch the episode again together for him to cover his eyes. And that's just exactly what we did. I basically pre-warned him when the scene was about to happen. I did say to him it wasn't too bad until Eve goes into the hospital and then the nurse takes the bandage off her eye, and I was just like, you do not want to see that. However, I didn't tell him about the eyeball in the jelly. Now that's not because I'm an evil little shit, honestly guys, but I just thought I didn't want to ruin the whole episode for him, and with the eyeball being in Lou's jelly, I just thought it was a brilliant moment, a lot like when Juicy's tongue was in Vera's present box in her office, so I didn't warn him about the eyeball in the jelly. But he was alright, he just covered his eyes whenever I warned him to, and he wasn't too bad. Thank you for your comment. Stuart Kirby, I love Mari's character after season 8, episode 3. Oh, awesome Stuart. I've got to agree with you, like, I do like Mari. I like her a lot more now. I didn't really like her in season 7. I hated her in season 7. I wanted her to die. I can't really remember what happened in season 8, episode 3. Was that just after she tried to kill herself in the gym? Let me know, Stuart, but yeah, I agree with you. I'm enjoying Mari's character. Puss in Boot 2516. The way Joan came out of that freezer was like something in a horror movie. I'm glad I was watching it in the daytime. It was really creepy, wasn't it? I was actually watching it with headphones on, so I was in a situation where I couldn't like cover my ears or anything. I just had to just endure it, but I absolutely loved it, and I'm a huge horror fan as well, so I loved every moment of that scene. Thank you for your comment. Myra Seeger, love your reviews and Wentworth. Thinking about purchasing Prisoner Cell Block CRAIGz, then purchasing Wentworth. What do you think? I think you should just do it, honestly. I'm a huge Prisoner fan. It's where my love for prison dramas started. It was the first prison show I ever watched and obviously fell in love with. So yeah, if you want my opinion, Myra, buy them all. Thank you for your comment. Before I wrap the video up, I had an Instagram message from user Alfie Horner, and I promised I would answer this question, so here goes. Hi Craig, I have no internet at the moment as I have moved house, so I can't catch on your Wentworth reviews for episode 6 to 7. I get it back Friday, and I'd love to make it in one of the end video comment replies. Do you think there was any indication of romance between Dr. Miller and Ali? Whilst not proper because she's gay, but maybe affection from Miller as he feels Ali's pain. And when do you think Lou will strike for Rita, as they keep butting heads? It's only time until someone will strike. Love the videos. Well, Alfie Horner, this is you, featured at the end of one of my videos. And in answer to the first question, do I think there was like any kind of romance feelings between Dr. Miller and Ali? Well, yes, not from Ali at all, because Ali's into women. But from Dr. Miller, I do feel that he finds Ali attractive. And I'm not gonna lie, I think when Ali kissed him, it shocked him for a second, but it wouldn't have surprised me that if this was all for real, Dr. Miller would have had it off with Ali a few episodes down the line, you can mark my words. And when do I think Lou and Rita will strike? 100% next week. That's when we are in for some big fight scenes. So thank you for your comment, Alfie, and thank you all for your amazing comments. As usual, you are all fantastic. Keep them coming. Okay guys, well if you're still here, then thank you all for sticking around until the end of the video. I've managed to record it all with a very, very bad foot, but we did it guys, we did it. So guys, make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe, and I'll see you all again very soon.